Small delay here, hoping we can go ahead and get started now. So looking forward to diving into our session today, our live analysis of some of the big winners for today. I know that's not a lot of the topic of discussion out there regarding the markets. I know things have been pretty bleak as far as the market sentiment goes, but if you know where to look and how to assess the charts from a technical standpoint, you can still have a lot of confidence in the markets right now. So we're going to be diving into several winners for today and also how to find some of those as well. A big thing right now also too is talking about the different sectors and just where to find some of these big movers that are still currently in some bullish trends. They are out there, right? So how do we find them? That's what we're going to be going over today. Before we get started and dive any deeper though, let me just get a quick kind of assessment of who is currently using VantagePoint. Of course, this session is open to everyone. So I just wanted to know if I see a couple familiar names anyhow. So let me know if you are currently a VantagePoint user or whether you are maybe just seeing VantagePoint for the first time. Maybe you've attended our live sessions before, but if I can get just a quick kind of show of hands here, or maybe a name and a little shout out, that'd be great. All right, very good. So we've got a nice little mix here. So of course we're gonna be, diving in, much deeper into the stocks and the assets today. But what I really want to do is start off with just how to use VantagePoint, because we do have some current users and those who maybe have never seen VantagePoint before. I do want to just, take a look and go through some of the basics. That way everyone has a good baseline and we're all on the same page as we go through our training today. So I'll just use, one of the charts that we're going to be evaluating today anyways. In fact, this is a great system to assess just the timing of the market and also have confidence in your trades as well. So let's go ahead, just for the purpose of this session, we're going to zoom on in a little closer so everyone can see this very, very clearly. Just let me know also too if you have any audio issues. I'm getting some quick things on my end, so just want to make sure that everyone can hear me as well. All right, perfect. Looks like we're good to go. So let's take a look here at our crossovers. So within VantagePoint, we really do try to make things very, very simple. Where you see green, that's typically going to be a bullish expectation. Where you see red, that's typically going to mean a bearish expectation. Also with, strength and weakness as well. So green would be strength, red would be weakness. That's a common theme, especially in today's market conditions, because strength and weakness is going to help you have more confidence in the current trend. So how do we find things that are already trending? How do we find, assets that are getting ready to move as well? So you're not stuck, just kind of sitting on the sidelines. That's a tough place to be for many traders when you want to be in where the action is. So again, we're going to be, finding some assets here today that still have plenty of action, even when others might be, in for a little bit of a rough go. So there's always opportunities in the markets. That's one of the things that I think draws so many people to the markets, is that there is just a plethora of opportunities. So let's go ahead and take a look here at some of our crossovers. So the way that VantagePoint works, again, if we circle back, is really looking at this blue line. And so this blue line that you guys see here, if you can follow my cursor, this is a predictive moving average. So this is not a typical moving average. This actually has predictive data built into that line. So when you are looking at that blue line, you're actually looking at many different markets that are impacting the market that you're looking at. In this case, we're looking at TJX. So let's, sorry guys, hang on one second. Oh goodness, gotta love some difficulties here today. Let me just make sure you guys can see my screen. There we go. All right. It was showing on my end, but apparently not on yours. So thank you for that heads up. So as we come into VantagePoint here, we can, I'm sure you guys, just want to see me talk the whole time, but let's face it, the charts are much more interesting than me. So let's go ahead and get started on the crossover. So as we were saying before, right? If you remember what I was saying, we've got our blue line here. So this blue line is your predictive moving average. And that blue line is going to help you better understand what the markets are forecasted to do, forecasted ahead of time. All right, this is actually a medium-term predictive. So you'll notice that I'll say short, medium, and long in this session a lot. The short is a one-day trend forecast. The medium would be a two-day trend forecast. And the long-term would be a three-day trend forecast. This is built for the swing trade, right? And that's really what we're seeing a lot of in the current market conditions is shorter swings. So why not have that 1, 2, and 3 day advantage of being able to see these trends ahead of time? So if we take a look then at our short-term crossover, you can see where this predictive moving average crosses above the black line and this trend turns green, right? I already mentioned the red and green, right? Like Christmas every day. So if you see this trend turning green, that would be an indication of a bullish entry timing. All right. So pretty simple. All right. Blue line crosses over black, trend turns green. Okay. Now, that's just one piece of the puzzle here. So we have multiple points of confirmation to give you confidence. And the more confirmation you have in a market trend, the more confidence you'll have as well. So let's take a look at our other pieces of confirmation that's going to give you confidence for your own entry timing. And just a reminder, guys, here, I'm not a licensed advisor, so please understand, I'm not giving you any trading advice here, but I am an expert on the technical analysis, specifically the predictive technical analysis. So this incredibly powerful information here, that's what I'm an expert on reading. So we're going to walk through that together so you can make your own trade decisions. Everyone trades a little differently in the markets. I've trained thousands of traders, and I don't know one person who would look at a chart the exact same way. So the data is what's really key here to give you the power, to give you the confidence to make those trade decisions on your own. So I won't be giving any trade advice here, but definitely advice on how to read the technical analysis so you can have more confidence in your own strategies. So as we take a look and assess our additional levels of confidence here, let's look down at the neural index. So this is what we refer to as the neural index. This is the red and green banner that runs along the bottom of your screen here. So this neural index is a 2-day predictor of price. So basically, do we expect price to go up over the next 2 days? We can see when it turns green here, we expect price to go up over the next 2 days. And that's exactly what price does here. When it turns red, we would expect price to go down over the next 2 days. Well, why is this important? Because price fluctuates within a trend, right? It's very rare that a market will just move up in a straight line, right? A linear fashion. It's typically going to be a little bit of give and take along the way. So how do we navigate through those little bumps in the road, right? That's the power here of the confirmation too, because not only do we have a crossover, but we're also looking down at price action. And then what we're going to look for is our predictive differences. So I'm going to get to the predictive differences here in just a moment. But first, let's take a look at where we see our crossover, and then we can look down and we can see we also have bullish price action. So we have a bullish trend expectation paired with the bullish price movement as well. And so then we have 2 steps in our confirmation of potentially bullish movement in this market, giving you a lot of confidence. Now, the software's been forecasting for, over 40 years now, almost 50. And so the accuracy of VantagePoint when it comes to these forecasts, when we layer the confirmation, is key. And guys, it's up to 87.4% accurate. So I don't know how much more accuracy you want in the markets, right? There's no guarantee. There's no perfect system. But if you can give yourself an advantage of over 87%. I mean, that just speaks volumes in and of itself. So let's come down to our third point of confirmation, which is actually going to be our predictive differences. So I mentioned them before, and that's these colorful lines down here on the bottom. I like to kind of call them the Miami Vice colors. But what these are is going to tell you whether or not we have strength or weakness in a trend. And so we talked a little bit about that already before, right? Where we have to have strength or weakness coming into a trend before, to have maximum level of confidence, right? So looking for a maximum level of confidence, do we see strength coming into this trend? And in what direction is that strength headed? Because if we notice these predictive differences, basically the strength of the trend, are they in favor of the current trend? Well, we have a bullish crossover, so our trend is bullish. The predictive neural index or price action is also expected to be bullish, remember, over the next 2 days. And then our predictive differences down here are also backing up that movement with increasing bullish strength. So with that level of confidence, it makes it very easy to make a quick and unemotional trade decision. And we can see here on TJX, this would be really a confirmation of a point of potential entry for a potentially bullish trend. So simple as that. We're looking for green, green, and then everything going up for a bullish position. Now, for a bearish position, right, we'd be looking for a crossover, and we have the crossover here on 3-3 for a bearish expectation. But look, we don't get the confirmation until 3-4 with that neural index, and then our predictive differences trending down at that point as well. Let me just grab a pen here, guys. 1 second. All right. So if you notice, we have a crossover here, check on the neural index for bearishness, and everything to the left of that dotted line here is coming down as well, giving us bearish strength. That would be a bearish indication. And here, contrary to that, right, here's our crossover. Our neural index is bullish. And then, of course, our predictive differences are trending up as well. So looking at our confirmation here, again, bearish, bullish signals. Any questions on that? Pretty simple, right? Gotta love it. It's simple, but it's very powerful because remember, I mentioned that this predictive blue line has got, multiple markets factored into that data. Because if we look at the market details on this particular market, TJX, for example, I'm going to go to what's called the intermarkets. And this is patented. We've got 2 patents on this, on the software. So it's pretty powerful when you consider the fact that that blue line, just to kind of pull back the curtain or the veil here on what's happening behind the scenes in VantagePoint. Because if you look, TJX, right? How do we know what is expected to happen in TJX? Well, we look at the drivers of that market. What is pushing, what is pulling, what is driving that market's price action? But take it a step further and then assess whether or not those markets are pushing TJX up, to the side, or even down. So the impact of these markets is also taken into account. Now, all of this is then factored into that blue line. So you've got 31 different markets here that VantagePoint is assessing for you and also assessing the impact that they will have on the market that you're looking at. In this case, it's TJX, right? So very, very powerful when it comes to that inner market analysis, that global analysis, because we all know, especially with the current conditions right now, that, oh my gosh, like how much global impact is having on the markets, global tariffs, global market shifts, global conditions, right? They're all impacting the current markets, and we're feeling that. And we're seeing that in the market landscape and the stock landscape just everywhere. And so it's important to assess that when you really want to be able to, accurately forecast for the markets and really, navigate through the conditions here. So as we take a look further into our trend, how do we know whether to stay in this trend? Position management. And any good trader will tell you that position management is where you're going to make it or break it, right? Well, that's again where VantagePoint really shines, is that as long as this trend remains green, then you've got confidence in that trend. And you can see we remain green all the way up. This trend, the line dips a little bit, and that's okay. The neural index tells us, hey, we might see some short-term weakness here. But if you notice, our medium and our long-term predictive differences are still coming up. And so our predictive moving average never crosses below that black line. It never turns red. So this is our continuation of the trend here. Now, if you switch over, and we do have a little bit of a dip below here, but this is where, again, the power of VantagePoint becomes very apparent, because if we switch to a longer term trend expectation, this is a short term, which is a 1-day trend prediction that we're on now. If we switch over to the medium term expectation, this is a 2-day trend forecast. So if you've already entered into this trade and you've been in it for several days and you want to know whether or not to expect this trend to continue, you may switch over to a slightly longer term expectation. And that's where the medium term comes in. This is the 2-day trend forecast. And we can see this remains green the entire time, all the way on up. All right. And then we could even switch over to a longer term trend expectation for those of you who might be a little bit more conservative as well. Now, these time frames, you can adjust the software for your specific time frames, your specific trading style. If you like a shorter term, quick take profit opportunity, use the short term. If you like a nice swing trade where you're staying in for maybe a week, 2 weeks, as long as the trend is running for you, the medium term. If you're slightly more conservative, use the long term, which is a 3-day trend expectation. It's very customizable here. So the concept, though, is confirmation. So here again, we have a crossover with a green neural index and all 3 of our predictive differences. Guess what? They're going up. All right. So managing this trend or this potential opportunity then becomes very easy, because we're looking for the trend continuation. Is this trend green? Right? Now, if we switch over to our most conservative view, which is the triple cross, then here we actually see 3 predictive moving averages on the screen at the same time. And what this also provides is a very dynamic level of support and resistance as well. So as price, and I want you guys to pay, close attention here to that T-cross long level. All right. As price breaks above that T-cross long level, in fact, if we have 2 closes above that T-cross long level, that can signify a potential break in the current trend. Well, the current trend was bearish, and then we break above, right? So again, potential continuation at this point, meaning a strengthening trend. We're no longer in a shorter term expectation where we saw our short term crossover back here, right? We're now in a longer term continuation. Now, where you choose to enter at, that's completely up to you. But knowing what VantagePoint can do for you, I'd certainly say look for those points of confirmation where you have the most confidence to enter in. And then manage your position accordingly to the predictive indicators as well. You could even use the predictive support, the dynamic support and resistance levels. Remember, those are predictive as well here, right? Because these are 3 predictive moving averages. So if you use that T-cross long as dynamic support and resistance, you could also, potentially use that to set stops, or use the predictive trade candle as well. Because this predictive trade candle, for those of you who do not know, this bar right here is predicting the next day price action. All right, so it's giving you the predicted low and the predicted high based on that intermarket analysis. So where do we expect price to move? That's really powerful when you think about it, because where do you want to enter into your trade? Well, if you can better assess where price is likely to flow during the day, where its low might be versus where its high might be, that can help you better assess a more strategic entry price, right? If you know that the predicted mid level for that price is right here, then maybe you want to get in towards the lower range of that candle, right? So you're not overpaying for an asset. So let's take a look at a couple other examples. Anyone have any questions? Okay, are we back on? Sorry guys, gotta love technical issues. All right, let's give it just a moment to see if we can get things refreshed. Okay, and we're back. Awesome. Thank you guys for your feedback. That just makes sure that we're keeping rocking and rolling. So I switched over from TJX to Ross. This is Ross Stores again, looking for those assets that are expected to benefit from some of the tariffs, right? How do we better understand and see these ahead of time, but also understand the expectation moving forward? Because it's one thing to have a small movement in the asset. It's another to know that you have enough stamina backing this trend to potentially continue, right? So what markets are going to work very well or could benefit from the current market conditions? There's always opportunities out there. So in order to find some of these opportunities, we really just need to look at our 4 points of confirmation. Now we could do that by pulling up an IntelliScan. In fact, I've got one pulled up right here where we can actually look for those 4 points of confirmation going up as well. So if we take a look at something out of our IntelliScan, right? And this is just looking for trending assets that are expected to continue, right? We want something that's looking good under these current circumstances, under the current conditions, and has the stamina or the potential to continue even when everything else is looking fairly bleak, right? So where are some of these kind of safe haven assets, if you will, right? And gold could be one of them, right? We also have to look at the sectors as well. So, something like ABEV, right? This is what I just pulled from the scan, guys. This was just pulled up. I pulled up the scan, and now we can see I just opened it directly from the IntelliScan. So the IntelliScan is a way to sort and filter for these assets, for these points of confirmation. Basically, we're going to make the software do all the work, right? And we're going to come in and evaluate the charts. You as the trader can then decide what you want to do here, right? So again, we can even search on the crossovers, but we can add things like volume and close price in here as well. Now, this is a lower priced asset, but it has plenty of volume. Also, that's a key factor in a lot of different strategies. So we want to make sure that you're finding opportunities that are going to be ideal for you as the trader. And there's a lot of different ways to customize these IntelliScans as well. But, that's why we provide training on the software, is to make sure that everyone understands how to build these IntelliScans on their own, looking for your own particular types of opportunities. So let's go ahead and take a look at the chart that we pulled up here. So ABEV, all right, we can see that we do have a crossover here. We had a little dip, right? And here's something really, really valuable. I'm going to switch over. Everybody remember I said that triple cross is dynamic support and resistance. What do we bounce off of there? That T cross long, right? So the fact that we bounced off of that T cross long, we could not break below that darker blue line here, guys, right here, tells us that this trend still has a lot of bullish integrity here. So if we still have bullish integrity here, we had that pullback, right, to a support level, right? This would be a support level in this case, right? If we bounce then and start to see strength coming back into this trend, what's the likelihood that we're going to continue down further if we're getting bullish signals off of a level of support? Probably not likely, right? The higher probability is a bounce off of support. So if we see a potential bounce off of support with strength, then we know that we may potentially see that continuation trend. So where did ABEV end today, right? Let's take a look. 242. 242. So above our predictive trade candle, actually quite a bit above our predictive trade candle. Why? Well, we had bullish strength, bullish strength, bullish strength. If you go to our crossovers, our short-term crossover was actually bullish and trending up. So the 1-day expectation was bullish. Our 2-day trend expectation, bullish. And our 3-day trend expectation, also bullish. In fact, if you're longer term and a bit more conservative, remember, you're okay taking that little bit of a dip, then no worries. You were in that trend all the way from back here, because look at what we're seeing. Crossover, neural index, and predictive differences all trending up here. So really, really powerful information coming from the predictive data to help you better understand the best possible entry timing with confirmation, with confidence, but looking at this from many, many different perspectives. So we've looked at like 10 different technical indicators here, and this is just kind of like the base indicators here in VantagePoint. There are optional, indicators to add on, like predictive momentum, to help you better see at levels of support and resistance what those momentum swings could potentially be, or the magnitude there as well. So, this is just so powerful, especially under conditions like this, because it really does shine a light when so many people are there's always going to be news out there that's negative. But when you can find opportunities that keep you from sitting on the sidelines, especially if trading is a big part of what you do on a day-to-day basis, this can give you the confidence to do it, without the emotional roller coaster, right? We'll put it that way, right? Anytime you can remove emotion from a trade decision, that certainly can be a good thing. So let's take a look at some of the other bigger movers for today. And you guys tell me what you're seeing here, because as we look at things like Harmony, right? This is a gold mining stock. How do we navigate through the conditions? Well, VantagePoint does that for you. And again, this is just our default chart here. So if we look at our short-term crossover, we can see the potential for opportunity when our crossover is bullish, again, and the green neural index, bearish to the downside. So is anybody shorting the market or trading options here? Because if so, then when you see things shift to the downside in an exact inverse of what we've been referencing to the bullish side, crossover to the downside, I mentioned this initially at the beginning, with our neural index going down and our predictive differences trending down, then there's, a great potential short opportunity there as well. Or maybe if you own the asset, you're writing a covered call against it. There's lots of different ways to leverage the position as well. And VantagePoint, knowing the direction and the timing of that, can help you better understand what strategy would be best to employ in that case, right? And that's really what trading is about, is strategically choosing what has a higher probability of success. And so with VantagePoint, it just makes it super simple. All right, so let's take a look then at our current trend that we see here. So if you look down, we can see we have a crossover right here, right? We have a bullish neural index. We have all three of our predictive differences coming up. And in fact, the order of these really does matter for consistency. So if we take into account the fact that the shorter term, the most sensitive expectation is kind of running away from the pack here at this point, kind of leading the charge, right? I like to think of it as the team leader, if you will, right? So as our team leader kind of leads the way and then the rest of the team follows, then we know we have good strength and good stamina coming behind that trend. So as we progress through this trend, again, this is where if you're already entered into that position because you saw the 4 points of confirmation and you had confidence to get in there, then the expectation would be to continue in that trend. And you could potentially switch over to a medium or a long or even a triple cross indication at that time to help better guide you through the trend. So as you switch to a different position management strategy, or a different phase of the trade rather, then your indicator setup might adjust slightly, but VantagePoint does that automatically for you. So you can very quickly, with the click of a button, switch over into position management mode if you've already entered into that expected trend. then you could also, again, use that triple cross as that level of dynamic support in this case, since we're in a bullish trend as well. And so, Harmony, last I checked, right at market close, was right within our predictive trade candle as well. Maybe just below, but still in our bullish expectation. So the days range all the way up to 1496. So right there with the incredible accuracy here in VantagePoint. Now, how do we also identify where to look for these opportunities? One, I showed you the IntelliScan, right? So if you're looking for stocks that are going up, then we'd set our indicator setups to up in this example here for our scan, right? To look for those types of opportunities. But what about sectors, right? How do we find the sectors that are moving? We've got a lot of markets that will potentially benefit from some of these tariffs as well. It's always good to look at both sides of the coin. And so if we take a look at our IntelliScan again, we've got a really quick way to do this. So I'm going to actually open IntelliScan right here. So I'm just going to open up my files. You can see I've got plenty of different IntelliScans that we've created along the way. I'm going to look at the sector scan. Now, I've got a component of seasonality in here as well, but I'm going to go ahead and open that up. We'll go ahead and save that trending stock. Sure. That was a good one, right? Pulled up some really good assets here for us today. So if we take a look now at our IntelliScan, you can see what we've got here in our breakdown of the IntelliScan. In fact, I'll just pull this open a little bit further for you so you can see. This is just an overlay on top of the chart. So my chart's not disappearing, guys. It's just in the background. But we can see this is comprised of, primarily the major sectors of the market. So this is a quick way of seeing just across the board what is moving up and what is moving down. These are our key primary indicators here in VantagePoint. Again, I've added that component of seasonality as well. So we can see over the next 15 days from a seasonal aspect, right? Do we expect this trend to move bullishly or bearishly based on its seasonal pattern, right? And this is where the additional components come into play to give you additional confirmation. If you know a market typically moves up during a certain time of the year or down during a certain time of the year, that can help you better prepare and plan for the shift in the market trend as well. Now pair that up with your timing and your confirmation indicators, and you've got just a really, really powerful trade strategy that starts to take place. And it's based on proven data, not just, what you feel like, right? Or, what somebody says on TV, because Lord knows, they're not always right. So use the data, right? The data is the data is the data. So I tend to take the data's word for it better than I do anyone else's, including my own, because let's face it, the software's smarter than I am. I'd like to say that, got some brains, but the software's still smarter than I am. Nobody tell my husband that though. Okay. So let's take a look like retail, right? Again, what assets are expected to benefit from some of these current conditions? Well, retail's one of them. Where did we find TJX and Ross? Do you think that might be in retail, right? I would gather to say so, right? And if you look across the board, look, everything is up across the board. So this is a sector scan that we can create using the ETFs. Of course, the ETFs are those groupings or baskets of stocks. So if we take a look at those sectors, those breakdowns, we can see what's moving and what's moving strongly versus what kind of has some mixed results and might be feeling some of the uncertainty in the current market conditions, right? Because uncertainty leads to fear, leads to sideways movement. And, if you want to play the downside, great. Then look for markets that are all trending down at this point, or areas of the market that are all going down. If you like the bullish side, look for things that are going up. Stack the odds in your favor. So you're not just blindly looking for opportunities. You have a strategy in place. What are the current market conditions? And that's something kind of from a top-down approach, guys. Like, look to see what are, and I'm sorry about my writing, I'll try to do the best that I can, but market conditions. What are the markets doing? Are they going up? Are they going down? Are they moving sideways? Right? Then look at the sectors to better understand what is happening from an individual kind of grouping standpoint. What's moving? What's not moving? What is driving some of these bigger moves in the market? And where can you find them? And that's where sectors come into play. So this sector rotation that happens in the market, right? Not everything moves up or down simultaneously in the market. There is that sort of ebb and flow that happens throughout the course of the year. So identify the sectors that are moving and move with them, right? So again, kind of coming down from this top-down approach, and then you can look for the individual opportunities, right, that we just looked at in the IntelliScan. So if you identify the market conditions, then identify the sectors where better opportunities might reside under the current market conditions, and then look at the individual opportunities. You've now already, from the start, from the get-go, from phase one, stacked the odds in your favor 3 times: markets, sectors, then ops. So systematic approach works every time. It helps to remove the motion and really help you be more strategic in how you're assessing and finding opportunities. It's also giving you confidence before you're even entering in, which, let's face it, position management, entry, all of that begins before you even enter into the trade, right? So that strategy should be set before you get in, and VantagePoint signals can certainly help you with those entry signals. So we took a look at some IntelliScans. We took a look at some sectors. I'm seeing some ticker symbols that came through earlier, so I'm just going to go ahead and pop those in here. Let's take a look at Goldman Sachs. Somebody had asked about GS. So looking here. All right, let's take a look at GS. So what was there any specific questions on GS? I'll let you guys type that in as we go through our analysis. XRP, all right, getting into some additional assets here. All right, so let's start with GS because that was the first one that was typed in. So we'll go ahead and take a look here. So I'm going to go ahead and put on our short-term crossover because, again, in current market conditions, we have to understand that things are very short-lived until they prove themselves otherwise, right? You're going to want a lot of confirmation here because of the current climate and the current market conditions. Being aware of what's happening in the markets is key because it allows you to adjust your strategy. Not that you're going to hang everything that you do on what somebody is saying in the news or news of tariffs, but you do want to understand that those things are happening so you can better adjust your strategy moving forward. So if we look at our current setup here on GS, now we can see our short-term crossover is what? It's bullish, right? Now we look down at our neural index strength, and looking down at that neural index strength, we can see that it is also bullish as well. So do we have confirmation there? Yes, check 1, 2, right? So 2 points of confirmation. Let's go down and look at the third. Are our predictive differences here also trending up? And yes, we see that our predictive differences are coming up, at least the medium and the short term. Our long term is fairly flat though, so this is already giving us a little bit of a sort of pause for concern, if you will, because we don't have all 3 of them trending up nicely like we would really like to see for that confirmation. Now, I'm going to give you an example of that back here where we can see we do have a crossover with a green neural index, and all 3 of these predictive differences have already started demonstrating or displaying strength in the bullish direction. So what is going to continue to push a trend up? What is going to help have that stamina to maintain the trend is going to be strength, right? We can only run so far for so fast if we don't have any stamina. And so this predictive difference set up down here tells us that we are seeing momentum or strength pouring into that trend in the direction of the trend, giving us additional confirmation. Not so much over here. I'm not saying this won't go anywhere, but you may want just a bit more confirmation here because we really want all three of these pointing up, right? So that's where you really do have to be careful in your entries, and why VantagePoint confirmation is so key. Confirmation equals confidence. If you don't have the confidence, maybe you find something else for the day, right? So anybody know where Goldman Sachs ended? I think it was down today. Yeah. So not that much of a surprise there, because did we really have the strength to push up under the current market conditions? The answer really here, kind of no, right? So not everything in a sector is going to move. You would expect Goldman Sachs to be kind of under that retail sector, but not everything is going to be impacted right away. And so this is where that confirmation becomes key. All right. So let's take a look at XRP here. So what are we seeing on XRP? I'm going to let you guys kind of take the wheel here for a second. I want to see how close you guys were paying attention. So I'll cycle through our crossovers here. I love going through the different crossovers because what this will do is help you to see the progression of the trend. Are we seeing increasing confidence in the trend, or are we starting to see levels that are backing off, right? So if we look at our short-term crossover here, our short-term crossover is sideways. It is flat right now. What that tells us is there's no clear direction. So we could potentially see, some consolidation. We could see a major move to the upside. We could see a major move to the downside, but we don't have the confirmation here yet. And I'm all about confidence. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it right? So why not look for opportunities when there's a lot of opportunities out there right now where we do have the confirmation, we do have the confidence in those assets using the predictive data, right? So here, we can see we just kind of hovered right around this level here today. So we were at what, 204 today, if I'm not mistaken. So right here towards the lower range of our predictive trade candle. If you look here, guys, you can see the predictive trade candle actually slightly below, but we were expecting a lower high and a lower low based on that predictive trade candle. I'm going to zoom in just a little closer so you guys can all see this, but look at that predictive trade candle. That's going to give you the predicted high and the predicted low for the day. Now, keep in mind, this information comes in at 6:30 the night before. So this information that we're looking at now and assessing based off of what the markets did today, we already had last night. So this is just kind of proving that the predictive data is incredibly accurate. And that's why I love these sessions that are after market close, because we can really get a better assessment of, okay, how well did VantagePoint call it today, right? Did the markets do what VantagePoint told them to do? I know that's usually Daniel's running joke, but it's a good one because it's true. It oftentimes seems that way, at least. So what we can see here is that we were expecting a lower high and a lower low today. That's why the predicted trading candle is shaded red at the top and also red at the bottom. So with this anticipation and our neural index and our neural index strength. Now, the strength indicator is a magnitude of that potential price movement. That's additional optional indicator. Not everyone in VantagePoint has that unless they've chosen to add it. But this indicator will also give you that layer of strength and movement as the trend progresses. It helps to have better confidence in that price movement as well. So when this is flat, we would expect to see consolidation in the price movement because there's no strength coming into it. Right? It's just pretty much so sitting sideways. And that's really what's been happening here for a while. So at this point, you might be looking for some additional volatility to start taking place along with a directional component to help us better understand whether or not we're likely to have a big shift to the upside or a big shift to the downside. Because what happens coming out of consolidation, guys? We typically see a rapid movement. So I like to think of it like a spring. And there's some great indicators, great predictive indicators in VantagePoint as well that can help you better understand the volatility and the possibility for volatility expansion as well. So as volatility compresses, right, as we get this consolidation that happens, all right, that's the spring compressing on itself. What happens when you let go of a spring, right? All that stored potential energy explodes, right? But in this case, unless you're looking at the directional component from VantagePoint, you don't know whether or not that's likely to explode to the upside or to the downside. That's why trading in consolidation, you want to have a very strategic approach to it. If you do, maybe some sort of delta neutral strategy, spread strategy for those of you who do options. But again, VantagePoint can find these opportunities because we're looking at the indicator setup. If you're looking for indicators that move up or down, of course you can look for ones that are moving sideways too. So if you like those delta neutral type strategies, then, we can find those in the IntelliScan as well. Again, I can't say it enough. There's a plethora of opportunities in the market, and VantagePoint can certainly help you find those and have confidence in trading them as you would. So that's XRP. Do we have any other ticker symbols that you guys wanted to take a look at? I'll do kind of one last final call, last call for ticker symbols. If you guys want to take a look, I did get another one here. Let's take a look. In fact, this one was one I had looked at earlier with somebody. So that was, I don't think it's the same person, but that's okay. So if we see here, MVST. So again, we're looking for confirmation. We're looking for confidence, right? So do we have the confirmation? Do we have the confidence here? Let's take a look. We know we have it on the short and the medium term. So our expectation today was in fact a continued bullish trend, right? Because all of our markets were trending, or all of our, not markets, all of our indicators were giving us a bullish expectation. So if we quickly shift through that short-term cross, right? That medium-term cross, you notice that's bullish, right? Green for bullish, slope of the line is going up, right? We have good bullish expectation, good bullish price action coming in from the neural index, and then strength behind that, expecting a higher high and a higher low. 4 points of confirmation right there from the get-go, and then more as we walk through our crossovers. Long-term, right? We actually have a long-term crossover as well for those of you who are slightly more conservative. And then based off of the triple cross, look at what we have. 2 closes above that T-cross long, indicating that potential shift in the trend and some integrity starting to be generated here. So again, looking at movers in the markets, who's still winning despite the current conditions and the current news on tariffs. That's okay. There's always going to be news. There's always going to be something happening in the world that's going to impact the markets. That's why the idea of global analysis is so important. So last but certainly not least, let's take a look at gold. You know what? I'm just going to pull up our futures market for gold. All right, somebody just typed in GDX as well. So thank you for that. I'm going to actually look at the futures market. We could also look at GDX, which is going to follow that very closely. It's the market miners. That was actually in our sector scan as well. So if we open up that chart, we can see the continued potential in gold, in the gold sector, as well as just gold overall, because this is a futures market. Now, it doesn't matter. We've done most of our analysis on stocks today, guys, all right? But it does not matter what asset you're looking at in VantagePoint. You are going to use the indicators the same exact way. So whether you're a futures trader, whether you trade Forex, whether you trade, stocks and ETFs, you look at these the same way, all right? So if we take a look at the futures markets here, got some other ticker symbols coming in. Sorry, guys. All right. Questions on the SPY. Yeah, for yesterday. Of course. I'll pull that up. So gold won't be our last. We'll take a look at the SPY. No worries, guys. I appreciate the engagement and the questions coming through. I certainly want to make this, worth your time today. So I'm having fun no matter what. So as we come and take a look at gold, we are looking to see whether or not we would see a bullish expectation. And we're already in that bullish trend, right? So do we see continued bullishness coming in? Yes, we do. Why? Our predictive crossover is bullish, our neural index is bullish, and our medium and our long term are still bullish. Some slight weakness here, but notice it is nowhere near our zero line. So we are still bullish on our trend as well. So we do still have confirmation or confidence here within this continued bullish trend. And I mean, gold's just been on a tear lately. Wouldn't it have been nice to know what happened back, quite a few months ago? I mean, this is back in January, guys, when gold really started to trend significantly. We talked about some of those seasonal patterns as well. And so from a seasonal analysis standpoint, we can also see some of those trends starting to take place. I don't have time to dive into seasonal tonight, but maybe we'll save that for our next live session. And don't forget to, if you want the announcements on what, topics we're going to talk about next, make sure that you like and subscribe as well. So that way we can make sure that you get those notifications. But look at gold, guys, navigating through, and I'm just going to put this on our triple cross here so you guys can very quickly see that this analysis is very quick, very simple, very easy once you understand what to look for. And if you're looking for a green trend after you're entered into that, we can see as long as we stay above, again, just one close below that T-cross long, not enough, not two closes, right? Just one, not enough to constitute that potential bearish breakout. So we're staying above that T-cross long really without a confirmed break, and staying above it the entire way up with continued bullish expectations. Again, a lot of the markets are benefiting, some of the markets, I should say, are benefiting from the current situation and the current state of the markets. When are things going to turn? When are things going to shift? Well, I'd certainly be looking at your VantagePoint forecast to do that. So taking a look at GDX, we see a very, very similar pattern taking place here because why? The markets that follow those major leaders are going to typically follow the same pattern. There's a correlation there. So that's why we can look at the markets from an overall standpoint, then look at the sectors, and then be able to identify those individual opportunities, similar to like AEM, right? This is a gold mining stock as well. And so again, following that very, very similar pattern, where can you identify these? We just went from a market assessment on the futures markets to a sector assessment for confirmation, and then finding the individual opportunity to trade, all right there. Here's your futures market on gold. Here's your sector on the GDX. And then here's an opportunity from an individual stock standpoint as well. So really, really powerful. I'll go ahead and pull up the SPY. We are just about out of time, guys, here today. But I'm looking forward to our next session. And I know Daniel will be on as well. So we're loving these live sessions, guys. We appreciate you guys attending and just being so engaging. We love to help our VantagePoint family members and really, anyone out there that could benefit from some additional technical analysis. What markets, what sectors to look at, under the current conditions. So let's look at the SPY and get this pulled up here very quickly so we can dive on into this assessment. So taking a look, we've got some mixed results down here on the predictive differences. And I said this in the very beginning, but you've got to be very careful when you start to see indicators that are not giving you full confirmation. Whenever you see things start to disagree, what happens in a disagreement, right? There's usually some uncertainty, right? There's a little bit of volatility, sometimes a lot of volatility, right? Whenever there's an argument or a disagreement amongst things that usually agree. And so when that happens, when we start to get mixed signals like this, we know that you should be very, very cautious. And how are we seeing mixed signals here? Well, look, Guys, the SPY never turned bullish here. It never switched from a bearish trend to a bullish trend here. It just didn't, right? Not on the medium term cross. Short term, maybe, but the question is, did we have all three predictive differences coming up? And the answer is no. That's how we know that there was a bit more of an uncertain factor here on the SPY, because even though we had these two lines touching, do we have the strength backing that movement to give you confidence? And the answer is no. So ultimately, with the uncertainty, with the fundamental analysis paired with this technical analysis and this incredibly powerful predictive technical analysis, you can better assess whether or not an opportunity has the odds stacked in your favor or whether they're stacked against you. And that's most important, especially in today's climate, is that you really need to have that confirmation, that confidence to be able to strategically place your trades based on your strategy. Have a plan, trade the plan, but you don't know until you really better assess from that global perspective, because there are so many factors impacting the current market conditions. So VantagePoint can certainly help you navigate through those global conditions, because that's what we do here is intermarket analysis. And as you can see, we try to make it as easy as possible. So looking forward to our next session. Like I said, I'm sure we'll have a good topic coming up. I'm hoping to maybe do some seasonal analysis. I don't know. We'll have to see what the markets, what the markets do over the next couple of weeks. So have a great rest of your evening, everyone. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you on the next session.